Turn anger into oomph. What an interesting notion, right? Certainly
Yeah.
one that my dad would have gone like, "What? Get out of here." Anyway, my name is Rick from Thriving Now. I'm here with Kathy Vartuli from Thriving Now and theintimacydojo.com. And we are so grateful that you're the type of person that is willing to explore this with us.
Yes. I think it's so powerful because so many of us have been taught that anger is dangerous, scary, something to be avoided at all costs, a sign that we're not in control, maybe, or that it reminds us of someone we loved. So, going through this and finding, I loved Rick's article about how he used the experience of being angry and the energy to create something that was better for his audience. Like, oh, I had this really bad customer service. We can be angry and we can, and there's certainly been times where I called Ring Doorbell for one right recently. Rick got an earful about where they were just making me jump through every imaginable hoop. And I love how he took that energy and anger and like how can I make the experience for my clients, the people that I'm working with, so much better so they never have that particular experience. And that's a beautiful way to use all that energy, and a lot of us don't even know how to access that. It's just pushed, either let it out in a, and we all need to vent sometimes. I think there's nothing wrong with that, but we, there's an occasional vent and mostly suppression, and nothing's done with that energy. So I just really appreciated you sharing that, Rick. I thought that was brilliant and very generous way to use the energy that you were experiencing.
Thank you. For me, I was thinking about what did anger feel like to me when I was growing up, and it felt about as welcome as a kitchen fire, you know, like very disorienting. We need to put this out before real damage is done. Um, we we actually had several kitchen fires in our family um, growing up, and so like that's a vivid memory. And my dad's anger, um, and like you said, I think that you I tried to lay out what the arc is and what this is a possibility. We are in this together. That's my that's why I view this as a circle workshop. Um, and I invite each of us to take a moment and tune to the notion that there are some people sitting in a circle and we've experienced energy in our life. Some of it has been at us or around us that we would label as anger. And we're going to start tuning in and IDing that feeling in a moment. And I believe that one of the reasons that I was drawn to tapping is that I wanted to be able to manage my emotions. I was watching a show about the Great Smoky Mountains. I live in that area and the national park and how they sometimes use controlled burns
Mhm.
to keep the park healthy. And that's very different than the wildfires we've had, where even though they may be natural, they can impact buildings and structures and areas of the park where maybe wildlife don't have as much room to move away from it. Anger
Or
is
it's
an
a very
energy,
dry time where there's like you can just blow up.
dry, kindled, right, like fire danger high. I would say globally, there are a lot of places where the anger danger is high. There's a lot of dry kindling emotions. And I I don't necessarily label emotions as negative and positive. I know that that's where EFT tapping started, was like certain emotions are more negative. For me, anger is, uh, it has an energy to it, it has a power to it. And I have a controlled heat source, several of them in my kitchen that I put to good use. We cooked breakfast on a controlled heat source in our kitchen this morning. And so if we think about that anger, maybe we've seen it only in the wildfire, destructive kitchen fire context. And if that's been much of your life, um, you know, it's a big club. Um, and and maybe, you've gotten to a place where you avoid anyone or anything that might make you angry. Um, and I get that. I'm an avoidant type of person, and I would like to propose that anger is a very pure form of energy. It activates in us, it and it can guide and inform what's most important to us. It's a form of ouch. And if something's an ouch for us, we can take that energy and do something with it. And that's a real skill. That's why this is a real skill workshop,
Uh-huh.
because for most people, this does not happen just by default. And if you're open today to maybe change and add some of the pathways, as Kathy said, venting, hey, that's absolutely a place where we can get the energy that's in excess of what's right for us out of our system. And there's an opportunity to channel it in other ways too, to clarity, confidence, and change, adapting and doing inspired action for things that matter to us.
I love that. So one of the things I'd like to talk about, if it's okay with you, Rick, is just how to feel our anger, because that was something I didn't really know how to do. Even after years of tapping, I had trouble with it. Growing up, anger was something that was really suppressed. And I think that certain demographics might find it a little easier because often for men, especially white men, it's like, oh, it's kind of okay for them to feel angry. That's the only emotion they're really allowed to socially express every once in a while. Versus a lot of people that are women identified, our society, people of color, they're supposed to be quiet. Like otherwise, they're dangerous. It's really scary for people to experience that anger. And I also had a lot of examples in my life where anger was really toxic because my mother and father would keep their anger down until they blew up and it got suppressed and ferment, and then you're bringing up things that happened 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and it was really toxic to be around. So I just didn't want to feel anger at all. And feeling the pure emotion it's like building a muscle. I had to start like in with 1 second increments. So there was like that, oh my God, I'm going to feel this. And I had a lot of fear. I had shame. Someone shared that the anger and shame are really entwined. We have a lot of beliefs as well that are kind of woven in to the feeling. Like I believed that anger was shameful. I believed that it was dangerous. I believed that it was meant I was going to say really harsh things, really cruel things to people I loved. So I was afraid to feel it. So I think the first step is just giving ourselves for one breath, allowing ourselves to just feel it and then let it go. When we experience an emotion and don't try to change it, don't try to shift it, it often shifts on its own, or it starts becoming more usable versus the pent up anger that's just gonna feels like it's gonna blow us apart and tear everybody apart. So to build that muscle, if you can just think of something that made you feel moderately angry and just take a gentle breath. And all we want to do is actually, we want to come out of our heads because it's very easy to live in our heads and that was wrong and this is good and this is bad and how dare they and all that. That's not what we want to do. We want to actually let those thoughts go and come into our body and notice the sensations in our body. So for me, everybody feels anger a little differently. We're all allowed to feel it however we feel it. But I will often feel tightness in my chest, like a hot feeling sometimes in my throat and heart, and sometimes when I'm really connected, my whole core will be hot. But ask your body, how does it feel anger? Think of that experience that made you angry. Breathe into your body, maybe wiggle your feet on the floor, and just notice how is your body experiencing, what sensation, what nerve ending experiences are you having that help you know you're angry. And you're welcome to share that in the chat if you'd like to. A lot of someone said I find myself feeling angry and then automatically shutting it, swallowing it. I don't remember feeling Having or feeling angry as a child, only anxiety, anger and shame are related, are connected for and probably trained very young. Someone shared, I think that many men, at least in North America culture, anger is a more acceptable expression of anxiety and certainty than showing fear. I think that's very true. Someone else like don't even feel it. Someone said I feel it in my stomach and sometimes I want to throw up. I love that you can experience that and thank you for sharing that. I start breathing really slowly, yucky gut feeling. I feel sick to my stomach and very constricted around my chest, neck, and head. So thank you for feeling that. I invite you just to, if you want to, just let that go for a minute. You don't have to, like when we go to the gym, yeah, Rick's rubbing his hands. You can kind of shake them out if you want. When we're experiencing emotions that we have a lot of fear around having, or a lot of social stigma around having, or very little practice around having, we'll often feel that constriction. It will not feel good because part of us is like, no, let's shove this down. And the muscles we have for shoving it down and ignoring it are really strong. We've been practicing them for decades. So if you can just do baby steps and let yourself feel just for a moment and then let it go, you're teaching your system that I can experience this emotion and then I'm not gonna nothing bad happened. Look, I felt those sensations for just a moment. I can step back into where I'm used to. But we're baby step building up the confidence that we can actually have the emotion and then we're not in and we don't have to do it in huge doses. So Rick used his anger, but to use his anger, he actually had to have the experience of being angry. So many of us cut off our power source, and we learned this when often we were very young and was reinforced continually that anger is really dangerous. We shouldn't feel it. It's not feminine, it's not safe, it's not acceptable, whatever that is. So, Rick, you're already tapping. Would you like to do some tapping on this? Because I think that's a
But and
really,
I wanted to say that part
yeah,
of what we're doing here is to help ID. Now, your label may not be anger. Okay, so one of the ways that you can kind of ID what I guess a lot of us are calling anger is if you don't normally feel anger, if you can remember something that was done to someone else or to you that was an ouch, it's like, ouch, don't do that. Now, and how what happens in your body as you feel the pure ouch of the situation. And those sensations are you could usefully use those sensations when we talk about anger. Okay. Um, some people don't have a whole lot of fire. They're just so water and earth and a lot of other elements in a way that the fire energy that most we often think of as anger doesn't rise in them the same way. But it's useful for like the ouch boundary. I want this to be different. There's a kind of energy of of that. Maybe you don't feel that either, which is fine. I don't. So that's what I would do.
yeah,
So, Kathy, we were going to tap on the feeling and a core part of tapping, EFT tapping. And if you're new to it, thrivingnow.com/tapping is where you can get our free guide. A core thing about tapping is we start with accepting those feelings. Maybe you were told that, oh, you're not angry. That's the best way to get me angry is to tell me I'm not angry or I have nothing to be angry about. But whatever it is, accepting the feelings gives us a grounded place to be with it. Even though I've done some things with these feelings,
even though I've done some things with these feelings,
I've shamed them,
I've shamed them,
I've swallowed them,
I've swallowed them,
might have even numbed them out.
I have even numbed them out.
Please pass more cake to Rick.
Please pass more cake to me.
I was saying to Rick. I don't know if other people use
I
cake.
know I do. That's why I switched it to me.
I accept that I have these feelings.
I accept that I have these feelings.
Top head. I have these sensations.
I have these sensations.
Eyebrow. I could call them anger.
I could call them anger.
Side of the eye. Anger is really human.
Anger is really human.
Under the eye. And I've seen it be really scary.
And I have seen it be really scary.
Under the nose. I've seen anger be really destructive.
I've seen anger be really destructive.
Chin. I don't want to be that way.
I don't want to be that way.
Collarbone. They wouldn't let me be that way.
They wouldn't let me be that way.
Under the arm. I've been around people that what wanted me to suppress my anger.
I've been around people that really wanted me to suppress my anger.
That's landing. Top of that. I've been around people that were scared of my anger.
I've been around people that were scared of my anger.
Eyebrow. I've been around people that denied my anger.
I've been around people that denied my anger.
Side of the eye. I've been around people that it would be really a bad idea.
I've been around people that have been a really bad idea
Yeah, to get angry in their presence.
to get angry in their presence.
Under the nose. And I accept I have these feelings.
And I accept I have these feelings.
Under those. I have feelings of anger at times.
I have feelings of anger at times.
Collarbone. And I want to do something useful with them.
And I want to do something useful with them.
Under the arm. And I accept where I am and how
And
I feel.
I accept where I am and how I feel.
As weird and awkward as that is.
As weird and awkward as it is.
Now you'll notice my style is to acknowledge it can be weird, awkward, scary, objectionable. Like we're, and if you're tapping for yourself, I'm not allowed to be angry.
I'm not allowed to be angry.
Are you kidding me?
Are you kidding me?
Side of the eye. I'm not allowed to be angry.
I'm not allowed to be angry.
Under the eye. I learned that a long time ago.
I learned that a long time ago.
Under those, I've got so much anger.
I've got so much anger.
Chin. No, I don't.
No, I don't.
Come on. I'm not allowed to have anger.
I'm not allowed to have anger.
Am I allowed to have anger?
Am I allowed to have anger?
I've had. I'm starting to sense that I might have some inner conflicts about anger.
I'm starting to sense that I have some inner conflict about anger.
Tapping is very forgiving, and it's the kind of thing that you could just do one thing that feels true for you.
Mm.
But like with Kathy, you lift it up, you allow yourself to feel some of it, you can put it down, and you tap on being acceptable sensations. Acceptable meaning they're human and they might even be useful. But at least you're not trying to fling them away in a way
Or
that's
bottom them
dam-
up.
damaging to your physiology, your sense of yourself. Your sense of yourself as a good person, all the things that can come when we judge our own anger, and clarity. So go ahead, Kathy.
Someone asked, "What's the difference between anger and where's the line between anger and rage?" I don't know that there's a specific line, and I've been doing a lot of radical honesty work, and they use just anger or resentment for everything. Um, Personally, I think anger is the general broad spectrum. Rage is probably on the far end where we've either been like our rights have been violated or our power has been taken away a lot, or we've been bottling it up for so long it comes out as a volcano kind of thing. So I would say it's on a spectrum, and anger is the entire spectrum, which is frustration at the low end, rage or at the top end. And I do think that radical honesty does. I don't take everything they do as the right way to do it, but I do think that they say we often get caught up in using the nuanced words as a way to suppress our feelings, and so they just say no, don't say I'm frustrated or irritated. Just say I'm angry. Just kind of use the broad spectrum word, and I think that is kind of useful because for many of us that have suppressed emotions, we want to get in our head because we feel like we have more control, and that takes us away from our actual body's experience of what's going on, if that makes sense, because we want to be able to try to get in our body if we can.
Yeah.
And I also think that for some people, I do this. I never allow myself to get angry for many, many years unless I felt justified. I felt very righteous about it. Like I felt like someone had really done me wrong, and then I would let it out and it would come out very righteous. And that's not really how I want to interact with the world. And I really love the fact that we can just get angry because we're angry. It doesn't necessarily mean the other person is wrong. I think there's so much associated with that in our society that if I feel angry, the other person has done something wrong. And that's not always true. Sometimes it's very true. Sometimes people have really stomped on our feet. And sometimes we're just angry because we don't like what the other person did, and maybe they didn't do anything wrong, we just don't like it. And we are allowed to feel anger. We're allowed to feel our anger with if we can separate the feeling from someone else needs to do something different or someone needs to apologize. Maybe they did something that really harmed us. But
Yeah.
in order to feel the energy and use it, if we can disconnect the need to get someone else to do something and just come to our own feelings, that gives us a lot more power. When we link it to a requirement for someone else to do something or experience us a certain way, it makes it much harder and it can come across as controlling, and the other person may have a lot harder time hearing us. I don't know if that's useful. I'm not saying that doesn't mean they didn't
It's
harm us.
useful. It's useful to me
Okay.
because this is something that you've been reinforcing with me as you've been learning this and sharing it. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to do this with you.
Hmm.
Um, I noticed that the more that I accept anger as part of the emotional spectrum, and so for example, if I'm at my limit for, let's say, receiving energy in auditory, okay, and someone honks, I'll go straight to rage. Like my inner rage for me is not a subtle feeling. It's like all of my cells are now pulsing with this needs to stop for my benefit. Now they didn't do anything wrong. They could have honked to let a kid know not to run into the road, or I don't know why they honked. I can get very angry if I'm at my limit in the same way if there's too much noise, just of people being in delight, right? Now, so that's a pure example for me that if I focus on trying to get them to do something different, um, that my anger is righteous. You guys are too noisy. I'm pretty screwed. Like, because I'm going to be always trying to make other people conform. Now, if anger says to me, I so need and value some quiet time right now, then the next moment I can put in the earplugs and go into a dark room and kind of reset my system. And there's a spectrum of that. And I share that. It's vulnerable to share that because why are you getting angry, Rick? Well, because my body it's one of the ways that our body tells us we've reached or exceeded a limit, or we're in an environment which is so not conducive to our thriving that there's a signal here. There's a signal. And I'd love for you to do a quick tapping with us just straight in, and like accepting that anger can be a signal that isn't necessarily about other people having to do things,
Yeah.
um, and change.
Okay. So I'd invite you just to take a gentle, deep breath if it feels good to your body. Karate chop. I have the sensation of anger.
I have the sensation of anger.
I think that it makes other people wrong.
There's a part of me that defines it as other people are wrong.
How dare they do that thing?
How dare they do that thing
How
when I
dare they
need
be
something different?
how dare they be so inconsiderate?
How dare they be so inconsiderate?
I feel very angry at them.
I feel very angry at them.
And part of me wants them to change their behavior.
And part of me needs them to change their behavior.
What if I can just be angry?
What if I can just be angry?
What if I can first deal with my own self?
What if I can first deal with my own self?
Top of that, they may be doing something wrong.
They may be doing something wrong that violates
Eyebrow,
my boundaries. Yeah.
yeah, eyebrow. But I don't want to give away my power.
I am not wanting to give away my power.
Side of the eye, first I can deal with the emotion I'm experiencing.
I choose to first deal with the emotion that I'm experiencing
Under the eye and not give it away by interacting with them first.
and not give it away by interacting with them first.
Under the nose, I've been trained to think that they shouldn't make me angry.
Yeah. I've been trained to think that they shouldn't make me angry. I
Chin.
shouldn't make them angry.
Chin. Nobody should make anyone angry.
Nobody should make anyone angry,
Collarbone, and we're all humans.
and we're all humans.
Under the arm, some of us are even doing our best.
And some of us are even doing our best.
Top of the head, and it's okay to be angry.
And it's okay to be angry,
Separate from who's right or wrong.
separate from who's right or wrong. Ooh,
Nice deep breath. And
I
that can
like
take
that.
practice.
Separate from
Yeah.
just okay to be angry, separate from who's right or wrong. Like that feels like there's a space in me that starts to open up.
Yeah, I think it decouples us from the other people because sometimes that other person is just never going to admit they're wrong. They're wrong. Sometimes they can never. They just maybe they're just incapable of it, or their conditioning is too strong, or whatever. If we decouple it, we feel our own anger, get our own power, clear our own system, as someone shared, and I think this is very true. Suppressed emotions, especially anger, I think are very toxic to our body and can make us very ill. So for suppressing it or waiting for the other person to like admit they were wrong or change their behavior, we are giving away a lot of our power and just kind of tamping it down in our body. Versus I can experience my anger, let some of the more intense part of it pass. So just kind of as we experience it, it modifies and it becomes power we can use to make a change. And maybe that change is I'm not going to interact with that person, or I'm going to do things so to protect myself from that person. That's okay. But I think when we decouple it and deal with the emotion first and kind of let our system use the energy in a really powerful and good way, then we have a lot more stand in the world and our body can handle it better too.
Ah,
Just trying to. And someone shared that they had a lot of anger in their adolescence and 20s, and then they wanted to be a better person, quote unquote, and they kind of started being mindful and suppressing anger. I think the really cool thing is we can be mindful and angry. And one of the ways to do that is to kind of get out of our thoughts, our head. Up in our head, we can create all kinds of story. They should. A lot of us go to our stories first. I love to go to my story. How dare that person do this? They should have known that I had a bad day. I walked into the store. They said this thing. They laughed at me when I got angry. Like, ah! I rub myself up a lot in my story in my head up here. Versus if I can get into my body and like, oh, what did they actually say? Oh, they said these words and they laughed. Okay, I can feel my anger. I can like I'm not getting in the story of it. I'm getting in my body about it and I'm building up the capacity each time I do this for my body to process that energy a little better. So we often get in our stories and we embellish and we take meaning from what people said and did versus like what am I actually feeling in my body? And I can just feel it and experience it and let that power be useful for something. And I think that's a big thing to do, and it's not easy to separate ourselves from our thoughts and just get into the sensations for a while first. Once we get into the sensations, we may find that the thought isn't that scary or big as it was,
even though it's hard to get into the sensations.
even though it's hard to get in the sensations.
And there is release in blaming others.
And there is release in blaming others.
And there's a sense of power in feeling like I can control them.
It's a sense of power in thinking that I can control them.
It hasn't worked out all that well.
It hasn't worked out all that well.
And some people can't even admit that they're a part of the dynamic.
And some people can't even admit that they're part of the dynamic.
That makes me so angry.
It makes me so angry.
I get so angry.
I get so angry.
I get so angry.
I get so angry.
Oh, how dare they?
How dare they?
They need to be different.
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 Or else I'll just stay angry.
Or else I'll just stay angry.
That really has not worked well for my nervous system.
That really has not worked well for my nervous system.
Mm. I am looking for a new ways to channel that energy.
I am looking for new ways to channel that angry energy.
I could use some oomph that doesn't require them changing.
I could use some oomph that doesn't require them changing. And I think when you think of the freedom that comes from this, I was brought up in a family where if you made anyone else angry, you were at fault, especially my mom. If my mother got angry, obviously we had done something wrong. The problem is my mother doesn't allow herself to feel anger unless she gets triggered by something. And one instance, she visited me in Florida, and I had a KitchenAid mixer. I'd actually gotten it with my previous girlfriend, and when we broke up, I got it in the quote unquote divorce. My mother sees this KitchenAid mixer, and she was overtired. She hadn't been taking care of herself, but she sees the KitchenAid mixer, and she decides that my dad's mom had given it to me. She hadn't. My dad's mom did have a KitchenAid mixer. My mother proceeded to throw pots and pans and scream at everyone. And my stepdad turned to the neighbor who was there and says, "Those girls always upset her." I had no way to know that seeing a KitchenAid mixer would trigger her. I didn't know what would set, like when everything is really suppressed, a small match, a flame, like if the room is full of gas and someone lights a flame or like lights a match to light a candle, boom, everything blows up. So a lot of times we are taught that anyone who makes someone else angry is like there's a lot of blaming and fault, and yet we don't always know what makes us angry. And we don't know what will make the other person angry. So I think there's a lot of when we decouple this, the blame and the anger, there's a lot more freedom where people can say, I'm really angry at you for doing blah blah blah, but that doesn't mean you're wrong. I'm just going to feel my anger about it. I might even tell you about it. I might tell you about it in an angry voice, but that doesn't mean you're wrong. It detangles that. Now that doesn't mean that sometimes people haven't harmed us. That doesn't mean like me having a KitchenAid mixer, there was I have no way of understanding that I should not have had I should not have to not trigger my mom. There are people that steal from each other, from other people, or say very cutting things to each other. That's a very different thing. And we can still decouple that where, okay, this person said something or did something very harmful, and I still get to feel my emotions separate from what that person says or does. So I just want the freedom that comes from just having that is really useful,
Even though I really want that freedom,
even though I want that freedom.
not everyone holds that space.
Not everyone holds that space.
Some people make me really wrong.
Some people make me really wrong.
If I get angry at all,
If I get angry at all,
I've been attacked and judged.
I've been attacked and judged.
I've definitely been dismissed.
I've definitely been dismissed.
And that's been really hard on me.
That's been really hard on me.
I can tell the anger means something here is important.
I can tell the anger. I'm
That when I
sorry.
feel angry,
When I feel angry.
that was unclear. When I feel angry,
When I feel angry.
something's important to me.
Something is important.
Eyebrow. I want that space to be held.
I want that space to be held.
Not everyone can
Not everyone can.
under the eye, and even some people can't hold it all the time.
And even some people can't hold it all the time.
I want more skill here,
I want more skill here.
Jen. I really want more skill with my anger.
I really want more skill with my anger.
It doesn't deserve to be dismissed
It does not deserve to be dismissed.
under the arm. I definitely don't deserve to be attacked.
I definitely don't deserve it to be attacked.
for being angry.
for being angry.
It just makes me more angry
It just makes me more angry
or ashamed.
or ashamed.
This is a powerful energy,
This is a powerful energy,
and I'm wanting more skill with it.
and I'm wanting more skill with it.
So one of the things that you do, for example, is, 98% of the time you'll say, "Do you have room for me to vent?"
Mhm. Every once in a while, I skip that, but
It's every once in a while you'll jump right into it, but again, like we're human, and if you were perfect at it, I would feel, like how is she so perfect at it? Um, but like you're exceptional at um, getting to a place where you know that venting is one of the ways to me, like venting to me, if I'm in a place and sometimes I'm actually not in the place where I'm going to be useful, but I think I am. And you're even good at detecting that. We've had that, but like if I'm in a place where I can really be useful to you to hold that space, and as someone said in the chat, it can be a hurt that makes us angry. It can be that we're scared or just that we didn't get a chance to express ourselves and we want someone to hear it as it comes out, which could have fire to it.
yeah.
And like I really appreciate that you recognize that about yourself, that that's useful to you. I get to experience you benefiting from me. Like some people vent and they don't actually land in some place that feels grounded.
Mhm.
Um, but you do. And so, like, this is a part of our relationship and finding people that we can do that with. That said, there are definitely people I love and care for that can't do that.
Mhm.
Their nervous system, the way that they respond to certain energies, it doesn't work that way. And so defenses and non-skillful, um, again, like I have strong feelings that, attacking someone for being angry is not helpful, but I've done it when I've been artful to say the least.
I think there are times when just letting someone, like if I'm dealing directly with customer service and like they've been pulling me in circles for hours and hours, I think sometimes letting them know we're angry is useful, but not attacking them as a person.
Yeah.
And to do that, sometimes I love that telling someone how they can be there for you is really useful. So if I just called up a like Rick and didn't say, "Could you be there just for me to vent?" He might try to problem solve, and I might want problem solving after I vented. But I think it's really useful to tell someone I need someone just to listen. I need someone to problem solve. Like letting people know how they can be there for you lets them give that to you a lot better. And a lot of times we're in the moment and we think they can guess, but they don't. People don't mind read very well that way. So just telling someone, I would like to vent for a few minutes. And I think one of the reasons I land early is I've been doing anger work for about 10 years,
Yeah.
like working really intensely on and feeling my anger. So there's not maybe quite as big a stockpile as early on there might have been. So I think that, but it's useful to be able to just have someone you can tell you're really mad at, like someone, a third party, like, I'm just really mad about this thing that happened, and be heard and loved and supported through that. And when we tell someone, I'm not interested in problem solving or judgment, I just want you to listen for 3 to 5 minutes, often most people can handle that if you're pretty specific about it, if they're not really triggered by anger. So if that seems like something that would be useful for you, and I think the center is a good place too. You can type it out too. Like sometimes I like to write it out. Ah, so stupid. They're awful. They're, they should not exist on this planet just because I'm really mad. And I don't want to say that to the actual person, but letting off the head of steam that came up while I was dealing with them. Now I have more room to actually feel my emotions, and I can start coming up with a better solution. Well, maybe I shouldn't use that company, or maybe I should ask for a supervisor, or maybe I need to wait until a few days to calm down. Whatever it is, I start having options.
So letting people know we're going to take a break here in about 10 minutes, a little less or a little bit more than 10 minutes for our 7 minute break that we like to take. Um, so we're touching on this powerful energy.
Yeah.
And again, one of our theories is that powerful energies can evoke powerful change and also, powerful damage to relationships and other things. We've seen that. Um, and one of the questions that I find useful as a coach, coaching myself, being with others, is what makes this really important? What is actually really important to me here? Um, to me. And this is where you can connect with the part of you that has those anger sensations. Um, so mine, if I connect to that and say, well, what really matters to me here? The first thing is like something that may not be the deeper answer. And you can ask, well, what about that matters to me? And what does that matter? What about that matters to me? So for example, if somebody says something that I find um, attacking, it's not even at me, right? So I'll feel this sensation, okay? And I'll, if I ask, like, what matters to me here? Protection. Well, what about that matters to me? Well, I know for myself that if I don't feel safe enough and protected enough by the community and by others, that I'll lose my voice. I won't share what matters to me. And that an attack feels like it it shuts that down. It's personal. It's attacking the person rather than engaging or even letting it go. So like protection, safety, people having their voice, that really matters to me. It matters to me for me to have a voice. And so when I see that happening, I'm like, oh, yeah, like that really matters to me. And when you start landing on it, you may find that your anger turns into something that has a different tone to it. Like mine becomes really earnestly emotional because I'm not burning up with like, nobody should do that. That's cruel. Like, that's true. I'm totally there. I'm 100%. I would sign my name to that petition. And if I'm going to do something with this energy, to turn it into something that looks like oomph, to me, it's like, oh, cruel attacks in the public, in a circle or in a community or something like that just feels horrible to me. I feel myself starting to question whether this is a safe space. It really matters to me. Okay, now what? Now that emotion doesn't feel like power, like strong. It just feels like, wow, this matters to me. That's an that to me is an oomph that as it as I'm with it, like, okay, now where in my life can I do this? Well, I'm going to really hold dear that personal attacks when I notice them. That from like if they arise in me, whether it comes out of my mouth or not, to remind myself how much safety matters. Um, to to create spaces like the Thriving Now Center space. Like it's a small group. It's always easier than it is out on Facebook or Twitter or something like that. But it's people that want to be safe and emotionally free, and safety and respect are part of that. So like I can put my energy into crafting a space like that. Now, do you see? Maybe you can even tell if you're a sensitive, empathetic person. Well, now Rick's got a place to put that kind of energy, and it doesn't feel like protection as much as it feels like invitation, um, earnest attention to it, holding a container that has certain um, precepts or concepts to that. Now I'm feeling different about that. I still, if that was my world that I had control over or was the moderator or something like that, I would still want to do something. But as soon as I start thinking about that, I get all shaky. This is the sign sometimes when you're out in the control realm. It's like, I need to control that. Bless you. Of course you do. You're a good person. You've got empathy. You don't want, yeah. And the oomph is going to come with things that are deeply intimately personal, that are going to come from with my interaction with these people. I want to just raise it to the next level of deeper respect for their diversity or how they handle energy or how they, to be more accepting as well as holding space. I hope that is yeah. Go ahead, Kathy.
Oh, I mean, I love what you shared there, and I love that you connected to that. And I think we should talk about that more after the break. I do like someone asked, is they'd heard that beneath anger is either fear or sadness, and someone else brought up the anger iceberg, which shows anger at the top and jealousy and frustration and all those together. I think there's some wisdom in there. I also think that often we don't just have one emotion, just like there's not just one color, there's many different variations. We might have sadness in there, grief. The iceberg shows jealousy and all these different variations of things. I think that sometimes anger is just by itself too. It's not always the top of the iceberg. It's not always mixed, but often it's not necessarily a cap on things. Sometimes it is. Different people use it in different ways. I think different social demographics have been conditioned in different ways to do this. Women often will feel anxious, women identified folks, and that's because we're socialized. Not, I don't think it's actually our genetics that make our the fact that we our genitals don't necessarily make us that way, but there's a lot of social pressure for us not to get angry. So we may divert that energy into anxiety. So often there's different emotions mixed in, and I think we'll sometimes feel the one that we're socially conditioned to feel first. So male identified people are more conditioned to feel anger first. Female identified people are more conditioned in general to feel anxiety first, or nervousness or fear, but they're mixed together. And we're each individual and we've all had different life experiences. So we may feel one, and if we clear, say we're feeling some anger and we clear some of that anger, we might feel grief pretty intensely because now the anger is quiet enough that we can feel the grief or the sadness. And then we feel some sadness, and then we might be more aware of some anger. And I don't think it's ever. I like the anger iceberg. I like some of the ideas in there, but I don't think we need to be locked into that. I think that each person is individual, and as we process, whatever's next is naturally going to come to the surface. And we can process that, we can feel that the same way. Just like, how do I feel the sensations in my body? Can I be with it for a moment or two? Can I start clearing any beliefs that are blocking me? Some shame, some guilt, some I shouldn't feel this, it's taking too long, whatever it is that's coming up, we clear that. We use that energy to create something better if we want to, or we just let it go. And then the next thing will come up. So it keeps coming up until it's gone. And I like when I first was crying, I didn't cry for like 9 years after a big event in my life. And when I first started crying, I was really afraid I'd never stop. And I had a really great therapist at the time was like, you will cry there's as many tears in your body as there are, and you will cry until they are done. And then there are other things will happen in life, and maybe you'll have some tears from that. I think emotions are like that. A lot of us have stockpiles of emotion that we've pressed down since childhood. And so we may have more built up than normal, but once we clear out most of that stockpile, we're dealing with life as it comes. And if we can just be with our body, tap and clear what's coming up to kind of stop us. And then we have that power that Rick's been talking about to create something new, we're not using so much energy to keep everything down. Our body is not fighting that all the time. We're just actually dealing. I think of it as a living meditation. It's like, what am I feeling right now? And what am I
Yeah.
feeling right now? And there's a lot of power in that. There's a lot of freedom in that.
And that's our pause point. Like the iceberg, there's a lot of fresh energy if you're not having to hold things down. And so that's the oomph. And we're gonna get into that after the break. We'll be back at the top of the hour. Please, you can stay connected. We're gonna go ahead and pause the recording. And if you're watching the replay, we invite you to pause for a few minutes at least to give yourself a chance to integrate and tend to your needs. And we'll be back at the top of the hour. Welcome back. So, a lot of
I
the
love this
things,
topic, and it's pretty fun.
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
intense because one of the reasons we're doing this as a real skills workshop is that there's energy here, life force energy. And, we've talked about people that suppress energy and then it gets triggered and it's like popping this big bladder of excrement all over everything. Um, if we're attuned to our energy and we feel a rising or something that is really hitting us or activating us, we can tap into the oomph in it by pausing, being with it. It's called a powerful pause. We did a workshop on that. You can find that at thrivingnow.center. And we ask, well, what matters to me here? And we invite you to let the part of you that is feeling the feelings be a partner in answering that question. As Kathy said, it's hard when we're angry, not especially if the energy is starting to come up and venting, or wanting to vent or get out. It's sometimes hard to get clear about what really matters. Um, and as you get clear about what matters, you've already opened a channel. So venting is a channel for excess energy to get out of the organism. Yelling is a venting. Pounding on things is a venting. There are lots of things that we can think of as venting, and that's healthy. Um, it's one channel. The oomph channel is, I believe, that the entryway to that is what matters to me here, and that's going to in my world, the emotional world, it's going to be around um, energetics, like the feeling of safety, or the feeling that everyone at the table has a voice. Um, so when you get there, now you're going to feel some energy moving. And by as Kathy helped us with that tapping, and you can go back to the recording and do that, being with that feeling along with what matters to me here is starting to change the channels within your body. We have channels in our body. Um, and a lot of us have seen anger come out in the voice and in threatening behaviors and in destruction of a relationship. For those of us that don't want to model that, where does the energy go? And I'm wondering, Kathy, whether you could give us a little guided visualization and guided sensation in being with the anger, but and also feeling grounded. So we're
Yeah.
not trying to suppress it or get rid of it. It's oomph, but we're wanting to have it feel like it's our energy rather than a destructive quality that
I
we're
really
trying
love
to cope
that.
with.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Just as a segue to that, we've had a couple questions about this. One thing, a lot of us have learned that expressions of anger are dangerous or scary. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
a little bit less, but
Yeah, I had to switch mics. So a lot of us have learned that the expressions of anger are dangerous and scary. And part of that is if we have a lot of suppression around our anger, we don't let it out until we're really stressed. Like we're walking into the family dinner on Thanksgiving when we're already like exhausted and we baked a pie all night and like all this stuff is there. So it tends to come out very strongly. So we've learned often we're not as embodied and we're not as present with that. And we might also be sensing many of us here are very empathetic. We can pick up on people around us emotions. So if people around us are very triggered or feel unsafe around anger, that can be really hard. So we're not only dealing with our emotions, we're dealing with other people's emotions. And I want to be really clear, this was important to me when I was going through a lot of this work, and I'm still, I think it's never ending in some senses. Um, if the person we're angry with has passed away, if the person we're angry with is not okay being around anger, or it just doesn't is not available for that, that doesn't mean we can't feel our anger and process it and get to the other side. There's a lot of things we can do. One, we can process it ourselves or with a coach or in a supportive circle like this, or we can learn to open the channels and be grounded and present with our anger at the same time. And I do want to do a guided sense of that. We can also teach people that anger is not so scary. This doesn't mean it's going to work for sure, but if we start expressing small amounts of anger and letting them see that it's not, I wouldn't recommend with someone who's really triggered by anger, we can talk to them about it, but we can also demonstrate that we can be a little bit angry and nothing bad happens. The relationship isn't over. You're not going to like chop their head off with the nearest object. And a lot of people are really triggered by anger, so it may be that they can get that and it may be they can't get that. We can all, but for me, some of the people I'm angry at, they've passed away, or they're just my mom. I don't believe I'll ever be able to be angry with her in her presence because I just think she can't. I judge that she can't handle it. So we do something called empty chair exercises, where I'll put a chair there and I'll pretend she's there and I'll say what I need to say while I'm tapping and spitting and just being as angry as I want to be. Um, and then I can calm down enough to be the point where I can feel my energy and I can be present with it. If that makes sense and is helpful. Um, we can't guarantee someone's going to be okay with anger. They might have triggers, they might have trauma around it. We don't know. We don't know how they're processing what we're saying, but that doesn't
Maybe
mean we're stuck.
maybe as part of the tapping and grounding, or the tapping and grounding, including that there's someone that really can't,
Yeah,
for whatever reason, be with our anger, but it's really
yeah.
direct. It's in the relationship, but they can't be the one to hold that space.
So I invite you to take a gentle, slow, deep breath. Feel your feet on the floor if you can. Wiggle your toes. Notice this. Just slow down enough to notice the texture your toes are feeling, and just actually feel it in the nerve endings, not in your head. Don't decide what your toes are feeling. Let yourself be curious. Notice the temperature of the air between your toes. And again, see if you can sense it with the nerve endings in your toes, not with your brain cells that are trying to evaluate and get in the way of all this process. They like to be very active sometimes. Another nice, slow, deep breath. Feel your butt in the chair or wherever you're seated. And just notice you're supported and you're with all these really cool people that are curious about this too. Karate chop. I'm a little bit afraid of my anger.
I'm a little bit afraid of my anger.
I don't want to get too close to it.
I don't want to get too close to it.
So it's very hard to be grounded when I feel my anger.
So it's very hard to be grounded when I feel my anger.
It's like a terrifying toxic dragon
It's like a terrifying toxic dragon
that might burn everything to the
that
ground.
might burn everything to the ground.
Maybe that's just because it's been suppressed for so long.
Maybe that's just because it's been suppressed for so long.
Top of the head, my power has been suppressed for a very long time.
My power has been suppressed for a very long time.
Eyebrow, I can often access my power through anger.
I can often access my power through anger.
Side of the eye, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
That's not necessarily a bad thing.
Under the eye, but it's been suppressed for a long time.
but it's been suppressed for a long time.
under the nose, and a lot of other people are not okay with my anger.
And a lot of other people are not okay with my anger.
Chin, they're not okay with my power.
They're not okay with my power.
Collarbone, I would like to be connected and supported by my power.
I'd like to be connected and supported in my power.
Under the arm, I'd like to notice my anger.
I'd like to notice my anger.
Top of the head, and know that I have a very friendly, powerful dragon to protect me.
I have a very friendly dragon to protect me.
Now just take a breath and notice, see what you notice coming up. The yabbats, the nose, those are things that are great to look at. Because we've been taught that, so one thing, little children, like I watch Adira sometimes. She's 17 months old. She wants something. Rick says no. It's like the world has ended. That poor baby goes into child's pose, and her heart, it's heart rendering cries because she can't play with the TV remote. Um, her life, imagine to her little brain, her life feels like it has ended as we know it. That's very toddler like. When we are little, we don't know how to handle our emotions. And Rick and Jem will pick up the baby, they'll hold her, they'll tend to her as she feels these things. She's learning that she can have intensive emotions and get through it with support. Many of us had very intense emotions and no one to support us. So we learned that intense emotions are terribly scary and overwhelming. When we were a little child, that was definitely true. And for a lot of us, we've had this suppressed for so long, there's a lot of pressure built. It feels really frightening. So all we have to do is imagine dipping up, like if we have this huge well of anger or any other emotion, we can imagine taking this very tiny ladle and dipping up just a little bit and learning to process just that little bit at a time. We don't have to process it all at once. And as we start processing it, the thing is, it can feel, I know my brain's like, well, I'm just dealing with this thimbleful. And it's like 15,000 tons of anger. Like, how am I going to get through it? The really cool thing is when I process that thimbleful, my system, the channels, as Rick talked about, start opening up. My system starts learning that I can handle a little bit of it. I get a little more confidence. I get a little more skill. And the next time, maybe it's still a thimbleful. And the next time it might be two thimblefuls. I'm starting to learn to be with this. Our power is separate from our anger, but it's fueled often by anger or intense emotions. And as we get the channels clear, they start flowing more effectively. And we could have this really beautiful tame dragon that's at our disposal, not something that's wild and toxic and suppressed and lashing out. And certainly, that's why I call Rick when I want to lash out at someone. I'm like, those stupid idiots, they should never be allowed to reproduce. And like just venting. I'm allowed to say in that container whatever I want. It doesn't mean I'm going to do anything to harm anyone. It just means I'm letting off some steam. And then I can access again the channels that are much quieter, the ones that are more useful, where I can take action. So if you can start imagining, we often talk about the survival brain, like we're like there, you imagine it as a friend of yours, a part of you. If you can imagine your anger, if you can start shifting it from this toxic, malevolent, out of control dragon that's going to raise all nearby villages, and start making friends with it and taming it, then there's a lot you can do. Dragons can be very powerful. They can fly very fast. They can heat our house when we're cold. They can help us set, if someone was trying to attack our house, we could send the dragon out to flame them down. If in that analogy works for you, it's very useful to have a friendly trained dragon to help you.
Yeah. And that's so as we
Oh,
open up
Magic
these
triggered.
channels, yeah,
Yeah.
as we open up these channels, you'll start noticing that the the primitive brain is not the only solution. So if I'm angry at someone and I want to fight them or run away from them, that's that's not that's primitive. It's very human and not as useful as taking a pause, however long that is, to get to the place where I've got oomph around some choices that I would like to make. oomph meaning I've got some life force to make some changes. Like, oh, I'm noticing that there's this whole dynamic around food. So, and it makes me angry at times. And I could like be angry at, or I could get clear like the nourishment of me and the people I care about matters. And yeah, I'm going to need some oomph to make changes there because it's not a sweet spot for me. I am not a chef. I'm not excited about it. But oomph says, okay, I get angry about it because it matters. And when people are dysregulated because we haven't eaten or they're, so can you start feeling like oomph starts looking like saying to your partner, hey, the nourishment of our family and the balance that comes from good nourishment on available when we need it without a lot of difficulty and decisions when we don't have that resource matters to me. And I've got some to make some changes there. Would you be open to exploring some of those things? Now, that's very different than I'm tired of you being hangry and coming downstairs and radiating evil to all of us. And like how if that was coming at me, I have to be defensive. And that's where I know that there are people on the planet that you can be angry at and they don't get defensive. I am not one of them. If you are angry at me and you're giving me the raw primal at, I have to put up an energetic. My system is too wired for that. Um, I own that about myself. It's not a defect. It's part of my neurodiversity. I can be with other people's anger for other stuff because it's not actually coming at me with my name on it. And so, like, that's why one of these things is important to me is because if someone vents to someone else, right, and they get to a place where they're clear about what they do whatever they need to. They go for a walk, they journal, they meditate, they go and to the gym and throw some people around in a somewhat controlled way. Whatever it is that you do to move energy, and then they get to the place where what matters to them. If somebody comes to me and says, "Look, I have oomph for this in our life to make the we space better," that is very different. And that's me. I know people that you can say, I am so pissed off at you. And they'll be like, wonderful, good change is coming. I love you. That's not me. Um, I appreciate that there are people like that. So if you aren't that person or don't have that person in your life, then this is a pattern. This is a way to channel, is to say, I'm not going to ignore my anger. I'm not going to just see or feel helpless that I can't change them. I'm going to get to the place or the world. I'm going to get to the place where I have oomph because I know what matters to me. And I've got energy now. That iceberg's got a lot of fresh water in it, even though it's in the middle of the ocean. That's a trick. And I would start looking at ways that I would like to adapt for the me space, what I need, as well as the we space we spaces I'm part of, and then choose to put energy into it. And that will feel really good to you. You can be really angry about something that's happening on the other side of the world and start feeling helpless because you anger and like, what do I do? This is where what matters to me: peace, kindness, safety. Okay, I've got oomph for that. Where do I actually? Oh, okay, right here at home, right toward myself, right toward a friend. Oh, I noticed that one of my friends um, was not treated very nicely in a thread where they were really vulnerable. I'm going to just call them up and say, "Hey, I just wanted you to know that I appreciate that you have a voice, and is there anything I can do to support you in feeling safer and respected? Because I love you." And like, that's what that's one of the things that we can look for. To me, that's part of emotional freedom. And if what's coming up for you all? We have about 10 minutes in this workshop. This is an ongoing exploration. All these real skills work together. But if there's something coming up for you that you'd like us to tap on in this final segment, that would be cool. Kathy.
While we're waiting to see if anyone shares, I have found that with certain of my friends, I've practiced with them, having them sit in front of me. I'm just like, I want to practice telling you what I was angry about with you. And the amount of trust and ease we've built up as we've done that. I have a couple of friends now when they're like, I have something, I'm angry at something, I want to share it with you. I'll get all giddy because we've learned that there's trust and that we can clear it. And I'm honored that they were willing to trust me enough to share their anger. So that is possible. I actually laugh sometimes when this one person shares it because I'm like so glad they're actually sharing rather than bottling it up. So just a thought. There is a side to that where it can be with certain people you can actually develop
Absolutely. I
that.
really admire the work that you've done there.
Thanks. We have a hand raised. Should we?
Yeah, that's fine.
Um, can I tap on something like your KitchenAid mixer story reminded me, Kathy, of something similar. So it's like 35 years old, and you started talking about that, and I started getting angry again. So can we tap on a specific incident?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
When I was 25, I took a trip from Seattle to San Francisco, and I was telling my parents I was really excited. My mom just says, "That's going to be boring as hell." And I don't remember what I said in response, but it was probably something like "fuck you," and and she was cooking dinner. She takes the spoon, she throws it, and turns to my dad and says, "Cook your own damn dinner." Stomps off upstairs, and he turns to me and says, "You're not very nice to her, you know." Like,
All
so
right.
now it sounds funny, but
Yeah.
it was like, wait, I was defending myself from this attack, and now she's turned on you, and now you're telling me I'm not nice, and it's just like
Karate chop. This convoluted response to anger.
this convoluted response to anger.
She lashed out at him
She lashed out at him.
because she was upset at something I said.
She was upset at something I said.
And dad blamed me
And then dad blamed me
for something I just shared.
for something I just shared.
The truth is, I was excited about my trip.
I was really excited about my trip.
And she said it's going to be boring.
And she told me it would be really boring.
Top of the head, the words she used were, it'll be really boring.
She actually said it'll be boring as hell.
Okay. Eyebrow, that really upset me.
That really upset me.
Side of the eye, she said it's going to be boring as hell.
Said it's going to be boring as hell.
Under the eye, and I said, fuck you.
And I said something like, fuck you. I don't
Under the
remember.
nose, that's what happened.
That's what happened.
Chin, and I'm still mad to this day.
And I'm still mad, even though I hadn't thought about it for years.
Collarbone, how dare she tell me my trip was going to be boring?
Dare she tell me my trip was going to be boring?
Under the arm, I'm really mad about that.
I'm really mad about that.
Top of that, she didn't know for sure.
She didn't know for sure. It felt like she wanted to ruin it for me.
Eyebrow, I made a story that she wanted to ruin it for me.
I made a story she wanted to ruin it for me.
Side of the eye, that may or may not have been true.
May or may not have been true.
Under the eye, and I get to be angry about that.
And I get to be angry about that.
Under the nose, the words she used hurt my feelings.
The words she used really hurt my feelings.
Chin, I'm angry at the tone she used.
I'm angry at the tone she used.
I'm angry, collarbone, I'm angry at the words she used.
I'm angry at the words she used.
Under the arm, and I'm just going to feel that anger right now.
I'm just going to feel that anger right now.
Top of the head, there's more to this story.
There's more to this story.
Eyebrow, and I'm just going to take this first segment first.
I'm just going to take this first segment first.
Side of the eye, she said your trip will be boring as hell.
She said my trip would be boring as hell.
Under the eye, and I'm mad at her.
And I'm mad at her for saying that.
Under the nose, I was excited about my trip.
I was so excited to go.
Chin, and I still get to be excited about my trip.
I still get to be excited about my trip.
Collarbone, she said it will be as boring as hell.
She said it would be boring as hell.
Under the arm, she said those words.
She said exactly those words.
Top of the head, I'm very angry.
I'm very angry.
And just take a breath and notice the feeling, the sensations in your body is just that first section. What are you noticing in your body?
I've had tightness in my chest.
Okay. So just notice that tightness. Maybe put your hand there if that feels good. And just be with that sensation for a moment. It's a sensation. It probably doesn't feel super comfortable, but it's not actually harming you. It's a sensation. Don't try to change it. Don't try to make it go away. Just be with it and notice that sensation. Maybe breathe into it if you want. Just notice that. Does it still feel tight in your chest? Does it feel more or less?
Well, that's probably more.
Okay. So if that tightness wanted to say something, what would it say?
Just say I'm angry that I was really excited about my trip, and her response was to say something really negative about it.
Karate chop. I didn't want her to say something negative about it.
Didn't want her to say something negative about it.
And she gets to say something negative if she wants.
And she gets to say something negative if she wants.
I don't like that she said something negative.
Don't like she said something negative.
And she gets to say what she says.
She gets to say what she says.
Top of that, I get to feel what I feel.
I get to feel what I feel.
Eyebrow, I have tightness in my chest.
I have this tightness in my chest.
Side of the eye, I feel angry about it.
I feel really angry about it.
Under the eye, and probably some sadness too.
Probably some sadness too.
Under the nose, I wanted to be excited about my trip.
Wanted her to be excited and support me.
Yeah. Chin, I wanted her to encourage me.
Wanted her to encourage me. What was I thinking?
Collarbone, she didn't do that.
She didn't do that.
Under the arm, and I get to have all my feelings about it.
I get to have all my feelings about it.
Top of the head, I have a lot of tightness in my chest.
Have a lot of tightness in my chest.
And it's okay to feel tight in my chest.
It's okay to feel tight in my chest.
And just take a breath. And see if you can just be back with that, whatever's going on in your body. Again, don't try to make it stay. Don't try to make it go away. Just be with it in the moment. What are you noticing?
It's better.
Okay. When you say better, what does that mean?
It means there's less tightness.
Okay. Ask that tightness, the remaining tightness, what it wants.
To be accepted,
Okay.
meaning by her.
Mm-hmm. So let's just, if you can, I'm going to kind of just switch it around and go, fuck you, mom.
Fuck you, mom.
I'm still mad at you.
I'm still mad at you, even though you've been dead for 22 years.
I get to be mad at you until the end of time.
I get to be mad at you forever.
You hurt my feelings.
You hurt my feelings.
And I will never, ever get over it.
I will never, ever get over it.
To the end of time.
Until the end of time.
Top of the head, fuck you, mom.
Fuck you, mom.
Eyebrow, I get to be mad at you.
I get to be mad at you.
Side of the eye, I can feel it as long as I need to.
I can feel it as long as I need to.
Under the eye, it's just a sensation.
It's just a sensation.
Under the nose, and that's okay.
That's okay.
Chin, my body is still holding on to this.
My body's still holding on to this.
Collarbone, which means there's some things to be processed.
It means there's a few things to be processed.
Under the arm, and it's all okay.
It's all okay.
Top of the head, I'm actually feeling it right now.
I'm actually feeling it right now.
Which is clearing the pathways for more.
Which is what, clearing the pathways for what?
For more.
For more.
Just so you can have freedom. Yeah, so I can have freedom if you want. Just to take a breath. What are you noticing in your chest?
There's still like this sort of rock sitting there, but it's a lot less. I mean, I wasn't ever allowed to be angry, so.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can, just be with, like, because we're running out of time on this, we want to wrap this up here, but you might want to, if you want to pull up a chair and pretend your mom is there and just tap and tell her fuck you over and over again, just take the first segment of that and just, just be with that sensation and or tap and say what you want to say to that chair, pretending your mom is there. That can be really useful just to be with the emotion until it passes. And a lot of us haven't practiced this a lot, so we're not very efficient for the first part of it. Like as we get more into this and the channels open up, we can get a lot more efficient. And then ask yourself if there's something you can do for yourself, some way you can use the energy to make your life better. That might be really helpful. I appreciate you bringing it forward.
Thanks, Kathy.
Yeah, good job.
I heard the desire for support, and that's something I share. And You know, I appreciate that when when you do this work and you can see that there's a place where we have to be with the feelings. They're intense, they're rock-like in our heart. The energy is really present. And you stay with that forever, maybe around that event. Um, or it clears and processes, or other things around it do. When we get clear about what really matters to us, I believe that that's one of the things that is core to emotional freedom work. Because what we're saying is, yeah, there are these traumas and situations and dynamics that really activate me. They were horrible back then. They still feel like shit. Um, and now what? If there's a healing segment of this, and that's what we do, and we seek not to rush it. Part of the real skill image here in this workshop is also then like, well, what really was mattering to me? Even outside of the the movie or the story, what really matters to me? What kind of world do I want to live in? Where do I want to put my energy? What do I want to cultivate in my spaces? A supportive, if somebody tells me, like, I assure you now, if somebody tells me that they're going on a trip, having just touched Margot's experience, I'm reminded inside of me, you know, people shoot down other people's dreams all the time. They quash them. They give their own impression of what it would be like. Oh, that would be terrifying for me to do. Okay, is that the world, right now I'm really attuned to, I bet there's somebody in the next month that's going to share something with me. I might even invite it, like, what's live for you? What are you looking forward to? And I'm going to channel some oomph because I'm pissed off at her mom too, right? Like, I'm like, um, but what matters to me? Yeah, supportive relationships. I'm going to be more attuned to it because it matters to me. And that's why one of the reasons we do this in a group is so that we get an opportunity when other people are sharing to say, oh, that matters to me too. And I can channel energy there. And your channels of like, oh, this matters to me, this matters to me. It means that less often do we have to stay stuck in the energy of anger, which is asking for processing and resolution. It's intense, and we get to be more in oomph. That's my belief. That's what I've noticed in my life. I still feel like there's so much energy in my being that I can channel in this way, in a healthier way. Um, Healthier meaning toward more thriving, you know, toward sweeter we spaces.
I
Thank you
love
all.
seeing, yeah, I love seeing you all here and doing this work. I think it's so important for your own health, your own power in your life, and the world. Like, we're role modeling that we can be ourselves and our emotions can be okay. And I just really appreciate all everyone shared. Thank you.
All right. Our next workshop, we will be sending out to the email list. So if you're not already on the list, we invite you. Or if you're seeing this, chances are you already are. But if you happen to see this on YouTube, go to thrivingnow.com, join our community, or the thrivingnow.center, which is where we have engagement around these real skills and other things that matter for a thriving life. So thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you
you.
all.
Bye for now.